And we continue with Chapter 19 of The Sword and the Stone. The Wart and Merlin have decided to visit a giant, and they are walking through his dungeon.
Huh! Cried Galapas, stopping outside one of his cells. Are you going to give me back my patent unbreakable helm, or make me another one?
It's not your helm, answered a feeble voice. I invented it, I patented it, and you can go sing for another one, you beast.
No dinner tomorrow, said Galapas cruelly, and went on to the next cell. What about that publicity? Asked the giant. Are you going to say that the Queen of Sheba made an unprovoked attack upon me and that I took her country in self-defense?
No, I'm not, said the journalist in the cell.
Rubber truncheons for you, said Galapas, in the morning. Where have you hidden my elastic stays? Thundered the giant at the third cell.
I shan't tell you,
said the cell. If you don't tell me, said Galapas, I shall have your feet burnt.
You can do what you like.
Oh, come on, pleaded the giant. My stomach hangs down without them. If you will tell me where you put them, I will make you a general, and you shall go hunting in Poland in a fur cap. Or you can have a pet lion, or a comic beard, or you can fly to America with an armada. Would you like to marry any of my daughters?
I think your propositions are foul, said the cell. You had better have a public trial of me for propaganda.
You are just a mean, horrible bully, said the giant, and went on to the next cell. Now then, said Galapas, what about that ransom, you dirty English pig?
I'm not a pig, said the cell, and I'm not dirty, or I wasn't until I fell into that beastly pit. Now I've got pine needles all down my back. What have you done with my toothbrush, you giant? And where have you put my poor little bracket? What?
Never mind your bracket and your toothbrush, shouted Galapas. What about that ransom, you idiot? Or are you too steeped in British stottishness to understand anything at all?
I want to brush my teeth, answered King Pellinore obstinately. They feel funny, if you understand what I mean, and it makes me feel not very well.
Umo Bistale, cried the giant. You have no finer feelings?
No, said King Pellinore. I don't think I have. I want to brush my teeth, and I'm getting a cramp through sitting all the time on this bench, or whatever you call it.
Unbelievable sot, screamed the master of the castle. Where is your soul, you shopkeeper? Do you think of nothing but your teeth?
I think of a lot of things, old boy, said King Pellinore. I think of how nice it would be to have a poached egg. What?
Well, you shan't have a poached egg. You shall just stay there until you pay my ransom. How do you suppose I am to run my business if I don't have my ransoms? What about my concentration camps and my $1,000 wreaths at funerals? Do you suppose all this is run on nothing? Why, I had to send a wreath for Queen Gwynthor Gwantha, which consisted of a Welsh harp 40 feet long, made entirely out of orchids, that said a melodious angel sing thee to thy rest.
I think that was a very good wreath, said King Pellinore, admiringly, but I couldn't. But couldn't I have my toothbrush? What? Dash it all, really, it isn't much compared with a wreath like that, or is it?
Imbecile, exclaimed the giant, and moved on to the next cell.
We shall have to rescue him, whispered the wart. It is poor old King Pellinore, and he must have fallen into one of those traps you were telling me about when he was after the questing beast. Let him stay, said Merlin. A chap who doesn't know enough to keep himself out of the clutches of one of these giants isn't worth troubling over. Perhaps he was thinking of something else, whispered the wart. Well, he shouldn't have been, hissed the magician. Giants like this do absolutely no harm in the long run, and you can keep them quite quiet by the smallest considerations, such as giving them back their stays. Anybody knows that. If he has got himself into trouble with Galapas, let him stay in it. Let him pay the ransoms. I know for a fact, said the wart, that he hasn't got the money. He can't afford to buy himself a feather bed. Then he should be polite, said Merlin doubtfully. He is trying to be, said the wart. He doesn't understand very much. "Oh, please, King Pellinore is a friend of mine, and I don't like to see him in these forbidding cells without a single helper." "Whatever can we do?" cried Merlin angrily. "The cells are firmly locked." There was really nothing to do, but the magician's louder cry had alerted matters to a crisis. Forgetting to be silent as well as invisible, Merlin had spoken too loudly for the safety of his expedition.
"Who's there?"
shrieked Gallopus, wheeling round in the fifth cell. "It's nothing," cried Merlin. "Only a mouse." The giant Gallopus whipped out his mighty sword and stared backwards down the narrow passage with his torch held high above his head.
"Nonsense," he pronounced. "Mouses don't talk in human speech."
"Eek!" said Merlin, hoping that this would do.
"You can't fool me," said Gallopus. "Now I shall come for you with my shining blade, and I shall see what you are, by yea or by nay."
He came down toward them, holding the blue glittering edge in front of him. His fat eyes were brutal and piggish in the torchlight. You can imagine that it was not very pleasant having a person who weighed 500 pounds looking for you in a narrow passage with a sword as long as yourself, in hopes of sticking it into your liver. "Don't be silly," said Merlin. "It is only a mouse or two mice. You ought to know better."
"It is an invisible magician," said Gallopus. "And as for invisible magicians, I slit them up, see? I shed their bowels upon the earth, see? I rip them and tear them, see? So that their invisible guts fall upon the earth. Now where are you, magicians, so that I may slice and zip?"
"We are behind you," said Merlin anxiously. "Look in that further corner behind your back."
"Yes," said Gallopus grimly, "except for your voice."
"Hold on," cried Merlin, but the wart in the confusion had slipped his hand.
"A visible magician," remarked the giant, "this time, but only a small one. We shall see whether the sword goes in with a slide."
"Catch hold, you idiot!" cried Merlin frantically, and with several fumblings they were hand in hand.
"Gone again," said
Gallopus, and swiped with his sword toward where they had been. It struck blue sparks from the stones. Merlin put his invisible mouth right up to the wart's invisible ear and whispered, "Lie flat in the passage. We will press ourselves one to each side and hope that he will go behind us." This worked, but the wart, in wriggling along the floor, lost contact with his protector once again. He groped everywhere but could not find him, and of course now he was visible again, like any other person.
"Ha!"
cried Gallopus.
"The same small one, equally visible."
He made a swipe into the darkness, but Merlin had snatched his pupil's hand again and just dragged him out of danger.
"Mysterious chap," said the giant. "The best thing would be to go snip-snap along the floor."
"That's the way you cut up spinach, you know," added the giant, "or anything. You have to chip small." Merlin and the wart crouched hand in hand in the furthest corner of the corridor, while the horrible giant Gallopus slowly minced his way toward them, laughing from the bottom of his thunderous belly, and not sparing a single inch of the ground. Click, click went his razor sword upon the brutal stones, and there seemed to be no hope of rescue. He was behind them now, and had cut them off. "Goodbye," whispered the wart. "It was worth it." "Goodbye," said Merlin. "I don't think it was at all."
"You may well say goodbye," sneered the giant, "for soon the choppy blade will rip you up."
"My dear friend," shouted King Pellinore out of his cell, "don't say goodbye at all. I think I can hear something coming, and where there is life, there is hope."
"Yah!"
cried the imprisoned inventor, also coming to their help. He feebly rattled the bars of his cell. "You leave those persons alone, you grinning giant, or I won't make you an unbreakable helmet ever." "What about your stays?" exclaimed the next cell fiercely, to distract his attention. "Fatty?"
"I am not fat,"
shouted Gallopus, stopping halfway down the passage. "Yes, you are," replied the cell. "Fatty! Fatty!" shouted all the prisoners together. "Fat old Gallopus!" "Fat old Gallopus cried for his mummy. He couldn't find his stays, and down fell his tummy."
"All right," said the giant, looking perfectly blue in the face. "All right, my beauties. I'll just finish these two off, and then it will be truncheons for supper." "Truncheons yourself," they answered. "You leave those two alone." "Truncheons," was all the giant said. "Truncheons, and a few little thumbscrews to finish up with. Now then, where are we?"
There was a distant noise, a kind of barking, and King Pellinore, who had been listening at his barred windows while this was going on, began to jump and hop. "It's it!" he shouted in delight. "It's it!" "What is?" they asked him. "It!" exclaimed the king. "It itself!" Well, he was explaining. The noise had come nearer, and now was clamoring just outside the dungeon door behind the giant. It was a pack of hounds. "Woof!" cried the door, while the giant and his victim stood transfixed. "Woof!" cried the door again, and the hinges creaked. "Woof!" cried the door for the third time, and the hinges broke. "Wow!" cried the giant Gallopus, as the door crashed the stone flags with a tremendous slap, and the beast, Gallisant, bounded into the corridor. "Let go of me, you awful animal!" cried the giant, as the questing beast fixed his teeth into the seat of his pants. "Help! Help!" squealed the giant as the monster ran him out the broken door. "Good old beast!" yelled King Pellinore from behind his bars. "Look at that, I ask you! Good old beast! Loo, 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 loo! Fetch him along, then, old lady! Bring him on, then! Bring him on! Good old girl! Bring him on! Bring him on, then! Bring him on!" "Dead! Dead!" said King Pellinore rather prematurely. "Bring on dead, then! Bring him on dead! There you are, then! Good old girl! I lost! I lost! Lulu! Lulu! What do you know about that, for a retriever entirely self-trained?" "Hoof!" barked the questing beast in the far distance. "Hoof! Hoof!" And then they could just hear the giant Gallopus running round and round the circular stairs toward the highest turret in his castle. Merlin and the wart hurriedly opened all the cell doors with the keys which the giant had dropped, though the beast would no doubt have been able to break them down, even if he had not. And the pathetic prisoners came out blinking into the torchlight. They were thin and bleached like mushrooms, but their spirits were not broken. "Well," they said, isn't this a bit of all right? No more thumbscrews for supper. No more dungeons. No more stench," sang the inventor. "No more sitting on this hard bench. I wonder where he could have put my toothbrush. That's a splendid animal of yours, Pellinore. We owe her all our lives. 3 cheers for Gladystant. And the bracket must be somewhere about. Oh, come along, my dear fellow. You can clean your teeth some other time with a stick or something when we get out. The thing to do is set free all the slaves and to run away before the beast lets him out of the tower. As far as that goes, we can pinch the epergans on the way out. Lordy, I shan't be sorry to see a nice fire again. This place gives me the rheumatics. Let's burn all his truncheons, and write what we think of him on the walls. Good old Galdestant. 3 cheers for Pellinore. 3 cheers for everybody else. Huzzah, huzzah, huzzah!" Merlin and the wart slipped away invisibly from the rejoicings. They left the slaves thronging out of the castle, while King Pellinore carefully unlocked the iron rings from their necks with a few appropriate words, as if he were distributing prizes on speech day. Gladystant was still making a noise like 30 couple hounds questing outside the tower door, and Gallopus, with all the furniture piled against the door, was leaning out of the tower window, shouting for the fire brigade. The slaves giggled at him as they went out. Downstairs, the occupant of cell number 3 was busily collecting the Ascot gold cup and other trophies out of the giant's safe, while the publicity man was having a splendid time with a bonfire of truncheons, thumbscrews, and anything else that looked as if it would melt the instruments of torture. Across the corridor of the now abandoned dungeons, the inventor was carving a rude message with hammer and chisel that said, "Nuts to Gallopus." The firelight and the cheering, with King Pellinore encouraging remarks such as, "Britain shall never be slaves," and "I hope you will never forget the lessons you have learned while you were with us here," or "I shall always be glad to hear from any old slaves how they get on in life, or try to make it a rule always to clean your teeth twice a day," combined to make the leave-taking a festive one, from which the 2 invisible visitors were sorry to depart. But time was precious, as Merlin said, and they hurried off toward Burbly Water.